The biggest edition of the CONCACAF Gold Cup is set to kick off on June 15. 16 teams will battle in 17 stadiums across 3 host countries, USA, Jamaica and Costa Rica. This is the first time in the tournament's history games are going to be played outside North America. The Estadio Nacional in San Jose will host a doubleheader on June 16 when Haiti meet Bermuda before hosts Costa Rica tackle Nicaragua. Jamaica will be the first Caribbean team to host a Gold Cup game when Curacao meets El Salvador at the National Stadium in Kingston on June 17. 2 hours later, they'll have the Reggae Boys against Honduras in the second match of the Kingston doubleheader. To talk about this year's expanded tournament is CONCACAF's Chief Football Officer, Manuel Zubiria. Manuel, welcome to the SportsMax Zone, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Good. First, let's start with the Gold Cup. The expanded version, well, an expanded version was promised, and we watched to see how many teams would finally be in it. The formula, we were promised that there would be hosts outside of North America. That has been delivered. So from an organizational perspective, let's start there. The Gold Cup 2019 is intended to do what to football in the region, or to do what for football in the region?
Well, obviously with the expanded version, allow more teams access to our premier competition at the national level, the senior level, expanding from 12 teams, which has always been historically the format of the Gold Cup, to now 16 teams. And having introduced a competition like the Nations League qualifiers in order to set up the groups for Nations, but also to qualify for the Gold Cup, added a lot of opportunities to develop the game in the region, create more meaningful games, and the Gold Cup is ultimately the ultimate pinnacle of our competitions. The opportunity to expand it and also take it outside of the North America region to Caribbean and Central America for the first time ever follows the mentality of CONCACAF, the new CONCACAF, I would say, where football comes first, and it's all about our members and expanding the competitions around the region and taking it to new venues where it hasn't been played before.
Based on how CONCACAF works, it is right to assume that CONCACAF's decisions always have rhyme and reason. Therefore, I ask, of the numerous countries available in the Caribbean to host, and of the countries available to host in Central America, besides Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua, El Salvador, et al., Jamaica, just one of several Caribbean nations, why those 2 for the foray of the Gold Cup into Central America for hosting and into the Caribbean for hosting?
Great question. Well, there was a process we've been basically following for the last year or so when the decision was first taking it outside of the North America region. We knew from the start, it was well communicated, one will be in Central America, one in the Caribbean, so there was an open bid process and open communication with our members to see who would be interested in hosting. There was obviously a long list of criteria that needed to be met, and we felt with Jamaica going through the qualifiers until a couple of weeks ago, we needed to wait on deciding where the Caribbean venue would be selected. Jamaica was always one of the top runners, along with a long list of others. Jamaica also, having been to the last 2 finals of Gold Cup, I think had a lot of merit, and we felt that it was a perfect selection to bring the Gold Cup to Jamaica as a sort of for the Reggae Boys to celebrate that with their fans in their home ground, and hopefully that would be a successful start to the Gold Cup for that group, moving on them from there to the next 2 venues in the U.S. And in Central America, it was sort of the same process. There were other members interested in hosting. Costa Rica obviously offered probably the strongest bid, and also Costa Rica at the moment was the highest ranked Central American team in CONCACAF. So it made total sense to play in Central America, in Costa Rica, excuse me.
Yeah.
Bermuda and Guyana will play in the Gold Cup for the first time in their history. How has CONCACAF embraced this new period for teams like them, and how have they reacted to the kind of opportunity that they now have?
Well, we've been following their performance in the Nations League qualifiers. We knew going into this Nations League qualifiers there could be a lot of surprises. With the idea of expanding the Gold Cup to 16 teams and going through a qualifier tournament with 35 members, we knew anything could happen. And it was a great opportunity for teams like that who perhaps in the past didn't have a chance maybe to to qualify for a Gold Cup. And there you go, Guyana and Bermuda. We followed their progress. We've seen also the excitement in Guyana with a lot of players maybe playing in England who have never really have been exposed to international playing, are now really, really focused on the Nations League and on Gold Cup. This is going to be a big opportunity for them to measure themselves against top teams in CONCACAF. And I think it's really giving the opportunity for some of these players to get a good look into the progression and development of their career. So we're very excited. Both of the teams are extremely excited, and we're happy to have them for the first time in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, of course, the concept, as you had mentioned before, is to give an opportunity for some of the lesser developed Caribbean countries to have an opportunity to play against elite teams of the Confederation, like the USA and so on, because prior to now, I see like Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana are in the group with the USA in the groupings. So Guyana now has an opportunity to face a USA, which prior to now would not be such an easy opportunity for them. How much do you expect this kind of opportunity for a country like Guyana to inspire other, relatively small CONCACAF nations to aim for these heights?
I think it needs to be taken as an inspiration to many others, where perhaps before you would only see those type of games maybe once every 4 years if you happen to be drawn in a World Cup qualification, and that was almost the big game that everybody hopes for. And now I think it should be an inspiration for many other nations in our confederation to dream of what's possible. We've got to start at the youth level, start building the foundations and the leagues, and build those pathways for the players to now have something to look forward to, where maybe they see themselves reflected in the Guyanese players or in the Bermuda players. Such a small nation, but they're there. They're playing against the big boys in CONCACAF and the bigger players who are maybe playing in big leagues abroad. So it should be a motivation and inspiration.
Does the fact, Manolo, that smaller CONCACAF nations, alongside the established powers, are now a part of this expanded Gold Cup that is being hosted, some of the games in the Caribbean, a couple in Central America, does that conclusively make the argument that CONCACAF is delivering a tournament and a setup that is providing the smaller nations with a reasonable chance of getting a slice of the CONCACAF cake rather than having to depend on crumbs?
Yes, absolutely. It's all about access. We're trying to create more access, more participation. We're trying to create those opportunities to get more nations behind what they need to do to look forward to. We have a World Cup coming to our CONCACAF region in 2026. This is the right time where a lot of these nations, through competitions like the Nations League, like the Gold Cup, and every other competition that we have, they need to start dreaming of what's possible. And I think with examples like you just mentioned, with what Bermuda's achieved, what Guyana's achieved, and what we saw Montserrat, for example, almost achieved qualification to Gold Cup, we're starting to feel the excitement, and we're starting to see those changes in how much is being done at the local level in each of these countries with the youth sectors and creating those pathways for the professional development of players.
All right, there's a lot more to be said about the Gold Cup, and we'll be talking, of course, as we move closer to the tournament. Let me just change tack and talk about club football now within the region. Because, of course, Europe's Champions League and the Europa League are set. Everybody in the world devours those competitions. I look on with envy sometimes, Manolo, at the growth of the Asian Champions League and how those teams are household names. I look at the club competitions, the Confederation Club competitions in South America. We know the established powers, the Copa Libertadores, and the interest in that. And I'm wondering, when and by what process will the CONCACAF Club Championships, the revamped championship, the top tier, and then the second tier for the other teams giving greater access, when will we get to the level where we can have carrying capacity in terms of interest, like happens in South America, like happens in Asia, and of course, in a way, a roundabout way, like what happens in Europe? Are we getting there?
Yes, I mean, if we compare ourselves to other confederations and our Premier Club Championship, obviously it would make no sense to compare ourselves to the UEFA Champions League for how many top league professional leagues they have within their confederation. We are a large confederation in numbers of member associations, but when you look really at the number of professional leagues, fully professional leagues that we have within our region, it's still very low. Mm-hmm. Just to think, I mean, Canada, for example, is just now launching their Premier League, yes, professional top level league. They still compete very well at the national team level, but to have a professional club league within your country is what we're working on. Just our Caribbean Club Championship, our Caribbean Shield is what CONCACAF committed to doing to develop more professional leagues in the Caribbean, because in Central America, with only 7 nations in Central America and most of them already having a professional league, their football is obviously developed. They're a little bit further ahead of perhaps the Caribbean. There's incredible amount of talent in the Caribbean, and we're working closely with all our members to further develop those professional leagues. We have club licensing regulations at the regional level. In order for clubs to participate in our competitions, like the one we just announced today here in Jamaica, they need to meet those criteria. And it's all about putting in the right guidelines for the leagues to develop into a fully professional league. And that's where will take us to the next level to be at the world stage.
Okay, so before you go, you just mentioned about working with some of these smaller Caribbean clubs to get them to the level of performing and developing their own structures. Can you connect that to any funding issues? Because I remember in the past, in Jamaica here, a team would have qualified for the CONCACAF Champions League and not go. They would decline the opportunity to go because the financial it was burdensome for them. So is there something from a financial standpoint that CONCACAF can say, we're helping we're assisting these teams in more ways than one, not just developmental, but funding.
Absolutely. There's the technical development aspect that we help, whether it's coaching education or whether it's different workshops on how to run a league, how to market a league, how to attract sponsors. And then there's the financial support. Each team that comes into our competitions, whichever competition it is, there's different levels of financial assistance. But for all the tournaments, there's financial assistance to be able to get from their home country to the next, so they can play their home and away group stage games, or whether it's knockout stage. There is financial contribution. The Caribbean Club Championship that will take place in Jamaica, the opportunity that those clubs have, one club will go to the highest of the competition, being the Scotiabank CONCACAF Champions League, competing against the clubs from Mexico, from the USA, from Canada, from Central America. The financial support for that top elite competition is obviously greater than the next that follows, being the Scotiabank CONCACAF League, and so on. But yes, there's definitely been more investment done to support and to avoid that. The fact that you qualify but you cannot travel because of the financial burden, that has changed.
Yeah, well, Manolo, we are out of time, unfortunately. But what is good is that we'll be in touch with you on the phone via Skype as we draw closer to the Gold Cup. We heard even before you came that you're a good man to speak to about things football and CONCACAF in this region. Congratulations on the work you're doing on the team, and we hope that you have the strength to do much more.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.